Welcome to this mastermind on supporting children who like to break the rules. Now, I've got a question for you, and you need to be honest with me, okay? When was the last time that you broke a rule as an adult? Okay, I'll tell you mine. I had ice cream for breakfast the other day. The rule says I should have protein and dairy, so I just sort of assumed that that was protein and dairy, and it was a really hot day. I was on holiday. I really felt like ice cream, and so I had it. Was that good for my health? I broke the rule of having my beautiful, healthy kale smoothie for breakfast. Not the norm. I broke the rule. Did I harm anybody? Myself, yes. Which leads me to if you've answered this question and like me, you've broken a rule recently, I want you to ask yourself why you broke that rule. There's two types of rules. There's written rules, those norms that we know are written in law. And for instance, speeding in a vehicle is breaking the rule, the speed limit, and there are consequences. Shoplifting, consequences, right? Breaking rules. Then there are unwritten rules, and the unwritten rules are the ones that are blurry. They're a little bit fuzzy. We don't really know whether the boundaries are there. We kind of suspect they do because, especially children, they see adults doing certain things and they model that. So if a parent has a rule that their child must not go onto social media at night or must not use their phone at the dinner table, and they see their parent doing that, that is a rule that genuinely deserves to be stretched and questioned. So, circling back to why children break rules and why certain types of children come in to our coaching sessions who like to break rules. Now, I like working with children like that. I never encourage children to break rules deliberately, but what I do encourage is for children to flex their independence muscle, to start discerning between what is right and what is wrong. Now, in our coaching sessions, we have a rule called respect. Remember, respect. And it's about respect for self, respect for others, and respect for things. Now, when it comes to rule breaking, when I'm coaching children who like to break rules, I'll always ask them, did that rule respect you? Did it respect others? Did it respect things? And that will lead into a good discussion. Now, another way that I like to illustrate rules and why rules are in place, because rules are really boundaries to keep us safe, right? And children who test those boundaries are children who generally are anxious. They're looking for reassurance. They're looking for the adult to support them in their decision, but they don't know how to go about that. So there's a game I like to play with younger children, which is quite fun. And play-based coaching, of course, is meant to be fun and it's meant to embrace the lighter side of heavier conversations like breaking rules. Very often, parents bring children to me who have been breaking the rules at home. They lie, they're cheating, they may not be doing their chores. They really are breaking the rules within the home, and the parents are at their wits' end. So, this little game is quite a fun thing to do, especially if you've got families in a family session, or you can do it one on one with the child or for a group coaching program. But what I say is, we're going to play a game, and there's one rule to this game. And this game, the rule is that everything I say, you have to do the opposite. Oh, and the children love that because if I tell them to stand, they sit. If I tell them to talk, they keep quiet. If I tell them to run, they walk slowly. And we have this wonderful game where the rule is simply do the opposite. And then we use that as a springboard for discussion as to how it felt doing the opposite when the rule was the opposite. Did it feel strange? Because listening to instructions is usually what we do. And then we use that as an analogy for when we break rules, that is listening to a rule and doing the opposite, right? It's the opposite. So, how do children know which rules are meant to be broken and which ones are meant to be tested? Which ones are meant to be strictly listened to? Because really, rules are there to take care of us. As a society, if we did not have rules, we would be living in anarchy, and we certainly don't want that. That is why children like rules. If you watch children on a playground, playing their own game, they will tell each other the rules. And if they don't tell each other the rules, chaos will reign. So you'll inevitably see one of the children or a few of the children telling others what the rules are. They might have a little banter, they might argue about the rules, but generally, children know that rules are boundaries. And children are hard on each other when they break the rules of games. I mean, goodness, if you in your play-based coaching have played board games with children, you may have seen that child who cries when somebody else breaks the rule or when somebody cheats. And that's not the child I'm talking about. I'm talking about the child who is the rule breaker. So let's go back to these children in our coaching sessions. Breaking rules is not necessarily a bad thing. It could be a sign that the child that you're coaching is really struggling with being controlled. Adults are always telling them what to do and how to do it. So breaking rules is their little silent act of rebellion to find their own identity. So a certain amount of freedom given to a child is good, right? Parents who control their children overly are the ones who really struggle with the rule breaking more than the parents who give their children a little bit of freedom. Now, we all have this inner compass within ourselves, and the inner compass is set to our own true north. It's our own morals and our own values. So, when it comes to rules, if a child does not know what their values are and their morals are, how are they supposed to feel and embody intuitively when something is right or wrong? When they should flex their muscle and push and break a rule, and when they should listen. So that is why play-based coaching is not simply about instructing children or telling them that rules are there to be followed or coaching them to set goals. It's about children discovering their own inner compass and their own inner intuition that allows them to choose a pathway that feels right to them when nobody is watching. Okay, we know for a fact that our older coaching clients, our coachees, the teenagers, the tweens, they are the ones who tend to break rules based on peer pressure. So if we can get children below the age of 12, understanding that feeling, that embodied feeling of when something feels right or wrong, when they should do something or when they shouldn't, that will stand them in good stead. It's not about us as coaches putting on our parent hat and telling them that they're getting it all wrong and that they're naughty. That's not what we do as coaches. We're not there to shame a child. We're not there to blame a child. We're not there to name the bad behavior. We're there to give them an alternative and to challenge their thinking. In a world that is constantly filled with people who are breaking rules and flouting the system, children are learning to do the same. So, as role models and as secret parents and play-based coaches, it's up to us to rebrand childhood to be a space of intuitive resilience. And what that means is we give children the opportunity to understand what works for them and why it works for them. And if it works for them, does it work for everybody else around them too? It's really important that children don't just break rules based on hedonism, which is pleasing themselves. Breaking rules is about testing boundaries that may be a little bit fluid. Maybe the child is asking for better boundaries. Maybe our rule breakers in our coaching sessions are really the children who are really calling out for help. We need to discern why they're breaking those rules, but not focus on the fact that they're breaking the rules, if that makes sense. Now, that takes a careful blend of empathy, compassion, acceptance, and encouragement. It's really important as play-based coaches to not push a child to always be honest and to never break rules. Sure, that's their parents' job. It's not your job as a coach. I ate ice cream for breakfast, and I'm sure you've broken a rule too, so don't tell me you haven't. I want to know what those rules were that you broke and why you broke them. Children are exactly the same. Our inner child comes out to play. That was my inner child asking for ice cream for breakfast. So, why can't children also test those boundaries? And in fact, another rule that I break is that when we go out to dinner, and I have lots of people who can vouch for this, I like to have dessert first. Who says you have to have dessert last? I don't like starters. If it's a three-course meal, why not start with the desserts? It's a rule that's unwritten in society that we have our sweets last. I don't do it all the time. I don't eat out all the time. So that's my little thing that I like to do. It's my little rule I break. I'm not harming anybody but myself. I shouldn't be having dessert anyway, not too much anyway. So I want you to tread lightly as a play-based coach when addressing those coachees who are breaking rules in your coaching sessions and support them to find their own answers, their own inner truth, their own inner compass, so that they start feeling what it feels like when they make a choice to break a rule and there's a consequence for that rule that's broken, right? And how it feels. That's the part that we need to talk about. So, what are you going to do to break some rules of your own? Now, as a play-based coach, I'm not encouraging you to break rules, but what I am saying is that some rules are meant to be broken. And I don't say that lightly. I say that really because there are so many rules in place that don't keep children safe. There are rules in place where children are at risk. For instance, children in England can now use social media above the age of 16. I don't think that's a rule that we should listen to. I don't think young people should have access to social media prematurely. After 11 p.m., I think it is. Now, for children older than 16, they won't be able to access, there'll be checks and balances in place. They won't be able to access social media. These rules confuse me. Surely it's about knowing what's right for you, what's right for your body. Because play-based coaching is a neuroscience-based framework that we use, a system, we need to give children the opportunity to know what's going to feed their brain, what's going to defend it, what's going to train it, what's going to befriend it. And breaking rules that may not be good for their brain. For instance, if a child has a rule at school to sit in their chair for 8 hours a day and not stretch, is asking to stretch and standing up when they're not allowed to stand up and stretching to flex their body and get their energy going, is that a rule worth challenging, worth breaking? That's what I want for us to do for children, is for them to know what's good for their body, what's good for their heart, what's good for their mind, but most of all, what's good for the planet. So when it comes to rules, eat dessert first. That's my recommendation to you.